Okay, we're continuing with chapter 4, which was a really long chapter. So this is chapter 4, part 2. Chapter 4 is called Bad Golf. So Grandma is out. She took Joey golfing. She's acting a little wild. She's got Pablo and Joey out in the green. She's hitting the balls at them. And the last thing that happened was he looked up and she went to swing the club. And it looked like it was about to get stuck on her oxygen cord for her oxygen tank. "Don't swing," I shouted. She went into her swing with a smile on her face. Maybe because Pablo had stopped to rest and she had him lined up in her sights when suddenly the club hit the ball and at the same time ripped the oxygen clip clean out of her nose. Her head jerked forward and she stumbled and fell to her knees. The ball whistled over my head as I ran toward her. By the time I got there, she hoisted herself up with the club and was standing with her hands on her hips. A little stream of blood was slithering down her upper lip and around the corner of her mouth. The sun made the blood very shiny. "Of all the brainless, cockeyed things I've ever done, this beats the pants off them all," she snapped. "Are you okay?" I asked. "You're bleeding." She ran her hand over her mouth. "Don't ever live to be old," she said to me, "or you'll have lived to regret it, I promise you." Then she bent over and began to cough, like she would never stop, and the nosebleed spattered all over her face, and it looked like she had been in a fight. Pablo saw the blood and was going nuts. "Sit down," I said to her. "No, or I'll never get up again," she replied between huge gasps of breath. "Get me home." And then, with what sounded like her last breath ever, she said, "Shut that yapping rat up." "Hush," I said to Pablo. "It's not good manners to laugh at other people's mistakes." "How do you know he's laughing?" she wheezed. He wasn't laughing, but I didn't want to tell her that the sight of blood made him hysterical. I picked up the oxygen clip and gave it to her. She gripped it between her teeth and breathed until she began to settle down. I gathered the rest of the balls and put them and the club back into the cart. Then I got up the stepladder and comfy on her little cushion. I grunted and groaned and pushed and pulled the cart out of the grass and back onto the asphalt, and we headed for home. When she got there, I led Grandma into the bathroom. "Sit on the toilet seat," I said. "I'll clean you up." I opened the medicine chest and found a plastic bottle of peroxide. I poured it on some tissue and wiped it around her nose and upper lip as she flinched left and right. It was just a little cut, but she said it hurt a lot. "I need a rest," she said, sounding tired. "I can't do as much as I used to. It's a good thing I don't have to chase you around all day anymore." Then she stood and shuffled over to the couch to take a nap. I know that when I'm around crazy people, it can bring out the craziness in me, but I was telling myself that my medication helps keep me calm, and that no matter who I was around, it was up to me to take a deep breath and still make good decisions for myself. That's what I was thinking as I sneaked into Dad's room. I wanted to see what it looked like and if he had put the storybook photo of me on his dresser. As I looked around, I noticed everything was in perfect place. The pennies, nickels, and dimes were neatly stacked in columns. Little boxes of matches were lined up in rows like dominoes. There was a small jar of toothpicks and a matching one for Q-tips. But there was no picture of me, just one of a tall, red-haired woman in a baseball uniform. She was waving a bat over her head as if she was going to swat the photographer. Next to that was a baseball sitting on something like a golf tee. So I picked it up. I didn't think Dad would mind if I practiced my throwing. I walked out back and threw it from one side of the yard to the other. I picked targets to hit like old cans, broken flower pots, an empty birdhouse, and sprinklers. I liked doing it because I was good at it, and hitting something over and over again kept me from thinking about what Grandma had said about Dad trying to get the family together. When Dad came home, he found me in the yard. He was holding two baseball gloves and tossed one to me. Try it on, he said, smiling and rocking his head back and forth. I worked my fingers up into the holes, and it felt like a good fit. Now hold it over your face and smell it, he said. I did. Have you ever smelled anything better? Nothing, I said, and smelled it again. Now go over to the other side of the yard and throw me one as hard as you can. I did. I reared back and let it fly, and it smacked when it hit his glove. Wow, he said. That was some heat. But when he pulled the ball out of his glove, his eyes got big. Where'd you get this ball? He asked. Your room, I said quietly, because I didn't know if I was allowed in his room. Well, this is my signed Roberto Clement ball. So? I said. Does your mother keep you hidden under a rock? He asked. You know who Clement is? I just don't play much with the other kids, I said. They tease me. He stared intensely at me for a moment, like he was trying to make up his mind to be mad or not. Then that big canoe smile floated out over his mouth. Well, I'm sure Roberto won't mind training the next CY Young winner, he said, tossing the ball at me and punching his fist into the glove. Right in the pocket, he said, bringing Roberto home to Papa. I leaned way back, then fired another one across the yard, right at the spot he punched. Smack. Wow, he said again. Don't you worry about kids teasing you. From now on, they're going to be hounding you for an autograph. You have an arm like a cannon, dude. Told you I was good at throwing stuff, I said. Can you hit? He asked. Don't know, I said. I never tried that part of it. Well, we'll find out tomorrow, he said. I'll take you to a game. I called Mom today and told her I was on your team. How is she? He asked, tossing me the ball. Great, I said as it slapped into my glove. She's dyeing her hair red. Dad arched his eyebrows, and his canoe smile rocked back and forth across his face. She was always a sharp-looking redhead, he said, and I'm sure do have a thing for redheads. Then he sort of looked a little lost, like he was missing her. I was going to throw the ball again, but I was afraid it would bounce off his head, so I let him think for a while.